Hello friends, Tal here, and welcome to How to Tank Mythic Nythendra here in the Emerald Nightmare, the very first boss of Mythic Emerald Nightmare, and honestly a pretty challenging, pretty fun, but honestly very melee unfriendly first fight for the raid. Now, as far as tanking goes, this fight is still very simple. It's very similar to the normal and heroic version of it. There's just one little change with the debuffs that you get from any sort of attack that happens during this fight, and a new mind control phase. But as far as tanking goes, you still want to 2-tank this fight. You still want a tank that can take mobility and is a little bit sturdy. The damage is a little more intense, but it's nothing too crazy specific, nothing where you want to specialize into very specific tanks or anything like that. Although of course the utility of a warrior with the inspiring presence helping out the entire raid is probably really good and helpful there. But overall, the fight still consists of keeping the boss in the middle, making sure that you taunt swap on volatile rot and that you run away from the boss when this happens so that your explosion doesn't hit the raid for more damage than is necessary. And also the second phase where the boss sits in the middle and starts dragging all the volatile rots and the infected ground towards her, and you DPS in the boss while also avoiding the bugs. Now, the major difference here in this fight and what makes this a challenging fight is that when you get to 10 stacks of your infected debuff, which does not go away in phase 2, she will periodically cast a mind control, and if you are at 10 stacks or above, you get mind controlled. You need to be brought down to a certain level of health, and then you gain control of your character again, and you can continue the fight as normal. The reason this is challenging though is because a lot of things give you this infected debuff. Every time you get volatile rot and you explode, the entire raid gets a guaranteed 1 stack. And when you explode the volatile rot and you drop rot around you, sometimes it could be right under you or just completely cover your way and you start getting a couple of unintended stacks. But the good part is the mind control is expected. It's normal that you're going to get mind control. It's not like you're doing something wrong, and you need to control the mind controls. Essentially, during the first phase, there will be 2 casts of the mind control. And what I found when I was doing this fight with my co-tank, what we ended up discovering was that if we made sure that one of us, each phase 1, got mind controlled on the second cast, it timed up perfectly with the volatile rot and allowed us to keep control of the boss and maintain her sort of in the middle. You're going to see that in this video. There's a couple of mess ups. There are times when I have volatile rot and I'm dragging the boss out, and that's because of course this is our first mythic kill. Things were going a little crazy, but essentially what you want to do is on the second cast of the mind control, that is when you have one of the 2 tanks be mind controlled and you break them out very quickly, and you go along and you deal with that in that manner. If you get it on the very first cast, whatever tank is not going to be mind controlled, God forbid you get both of them. But if you get it on the very first cast, the issue that you would have there is that it's at the same time as a volatile rot, and you never want to have both tanks be mind controlled at once. So essentially when you start out the fight, you want to choose one of the tanks, have them be the first one to get mind controlled. Make sure that they are more liberal, they stand in a couple of the infected grounds, they get a couple stacks to not get mind controlled by the first cast, but have them be mind controlled by the second cast. And the second tank, be excruciatingly careful. They cannot take too many stacks because the second phase 1 is when they're going to get mind controlled. And of course you don't want to be at too many high stacks. You need to avoid as many stacks as possible because in the second phase, obviously you're avoiding the very first cast again. And if you maintain that nice little flow, it makes everything a lot easier. That does make phase 2 more dangerous though. The exploding bugs will give you a stack of the infected debuff, and it's obviously not going to be a great deal if you get infected and you get mind controlled before you're supposed to. So caution in phase 2, stay away from the boss. Honestly, it's not as important. This is not as much of a DPS race. You don't need to really be standing out there if you can help it. You need to avoid the bug cast as much as possible. But beyond that, the rest of the fight is pretty much the same. You still have the DPS getting the debuff as well and running out of the raid. You still have the breath that's going out. It's all about managing your stacks in your mind control and being mind controlled at specific moments of the fight, which is most convenient to not moving the boss and not destroying your raid or your healers or anything like that. Keep in mind something. When the MCs go out, and you have, periodically healers and DPS are going to mind controlled, you want to do as much damage as you can to break them out, but you want to also be careful not to stun them for an extended period of time. So for example, if you have something such as Shockwave as a warrior, you don't want to cast it when they're getting close to the end of their mind control, because very shortly after, the timer's lined up to giving them a rot, and if they're in a very big stun, or if they're slowed for an extended amount of time and the rot gets on them, that's when they all explode on each other and you end up wiping the raid. The other thing to keep in mind is that her threat table is a little bit weird when the mind control goes off. For some reason, it either seems to reset or randomly choose a person to go ahead and start having as their main focus. What you need to make sure you do is, when it's a tank that's being mind controlled, make sure that the other tank immediately taunts after the MC, or when it's neither tank being mind controlled, that they both just go ahead and taunt the boss. Make sure that you have that control, because you don't want her turning around and one-shotting a ranged or a melee or anything like that. It's very, very important to know that. I don't know if this is intended. I couldn't find this information anywhere else where I was looking, but it is something that happens, and it happens often enough that you have to worry about it. Beyond that though, if you control your mind controls, you should be fine. Do note that you do not want to pop a gigantic personal cooldown before you get MC'd. You want to try to pop out a bear form. If you've been noticing, I pop into, my caster form every once in a while. I was expecting a mind control to come out. You want to do that because it makes it easier on the raid to kill you. The other thing that you need to worry about is you can use your own abilities. What you do is when you get mind controlled, you you channel a spell, and it does damage, and it obviously is not great for your raid. And when you get interrupted, there's a chance you start using personal abilities. So being in caster form, it's more likely that I'm going to be knocked out of it faster. I'm not going to have as much defensive skills. I'm going to make sure that the boss doesn't use like my iron first stacks or anything like that. And it's also important to know that if you're doing something like that, let your healers know, because they need to watch you, because you're going to come out of that with like ignites from fire mages, diseases from unholy DKs. You're going to be at half health or something. You definitely don't want to die coming out of the mind control. But beyond that, this fight is very, very easy. It's all about controlling your infected dot, not just you, but your entire raid, and controlling the room, not being in the safe areas that your raid marks, depending on how you do your strategy. And overall, it's not a very melee-friendly fight. You need to be very careful about stacks everywhere, but it's an enjoyable first fight, and it's a really good feeling of accomplishment once it's down. But anyways, guys, that's my guide to tanking Mythic Nythendra here in the Emerald Nightmare. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys look forward to seeing more of these tank videos in the future. See you guys around. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and drop it a like. You can subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content just like this. And I want to thank the time each and every single one of you took out of your day to go ahead and watch this, as well as a very special thank you to my Patreon patrons who continue to make this dream a reality through their monthly continued support. If you'd like to go ahead and become a Patreon patron, you can go ahead and click right there on the logo. It'll take you right to the page. And other than that, you can go ahead and tweet me or follow me at Tauriel here on Twitter. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, fantastic day. See you guys around.
Turns to gray, we'll calmly walk away from the fray. When structure falls and all else fails,